You know the feeling. You crack the code. 6 figures, maybe more. The bank account looks heavy, but your chest feels light, almost empty. You bought the car, the watch, the trips. You upgraded the apartment. You upgraded the flights. You upgraded your life. You followed the rules. You did what everyone said would finally make you feel secure. But let me ask you something. Honestly, no performance. Right now, are you financially stable? Not successful, stable. There's a voice inside you, isn't there? It whispers at night. This isn't permanent. You can't slow down. If you stop running, this disappears. And that voice doesn't go away when the paycheck increases. It just gets louder. This isn't about being bad with money. You're not reckless. You're not stupid. You're trapped in something far more subtle. It's called the scarcity loop, and it's powered by what I call the $100,000 trap. And once you see it clearly, you'll realize the money was never the real problem.
Let's talk about the costume. You're wearing it right now. It fits well, tailored. It says, I made it. I figured it out. I belong in this room. It smells expensive, but deep down, sometimes it feels borrowed, like you slipped into a role that belongs to someone else, someone smarter, someone more confident, someone who actually deserved it. That quiet tension in your chest, that's not humility. That's imposter syndrome attached to income growth, and your brain hates that feeling. It feels like exposure is around the corner, so your brain creates a defense mechanism, a very expensive one. It tells you, if you earn like this, you must live like this. Not to enjoy it, to defend it.
Think about your last major purchase, the $8,000 trip, the suite upgrade, the luxury furniture that looks better than it feels, the watch, the car. Be honest, was it joy or was it proof? Because sometimes the purchase isn't an object, it's a receipt, a document you hold up to your inner critic and say, see, I'm not a fraud. See, I belong here. See, this is real. And for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, the anxiety goes quiet. That's the chemical high. Dopamine mixed with validation. But then something happens. The savings account still feels thin. The runway still feels short. And the voice comes back, louder.
When you cross 6 figures, something psychological shifts. Before that, $20,000 in savings felt like safety. Now your brain calculates differently. If this income disappears, how long does this last? 6 weeks? 2 months? Your lifestyle expanded with your income. Your overhead grew. Your expectations grew. Your identity grew. But your sense of security didn't. In fact, it often shrinks. Because the higher you climb, the farther the fall feels. And here's the paradox most people never talk about. Your brain can find financial stability more terrifying than financial scarcity.
It sounds irrational, but think about it. If you build a real safety net, the kind where your money quietly grows on its own, where income becomes optional instead of urgent, the fight ends. The chase slows. And if your identity was built on striving, who are you without the chase? High achievers don't just work hard. They derive self-worth from motion, from pursuit, from tension, from being slightly behind and catching up. Scarcity, as painful as it is, gives you a role. It gives you urgency. It gives you a reason to push. But stability demands something much harder, self-definition without pressure. And that's uncomfortable. So your subconscious sabotages it.
Let's break the loop down clearly. Step 1. You hit a high-income milestone. There's validation, pride, relief for about 3 days. Step 2. The imposter voice returns. This won't last. You got lucky. You need to maintain this. Step 3. Tension builds internally. Your nervous system craves reassurance. Step 4. You spend disproportionately. Luxury, upgrades, status signals. You feel immediate relief. Step 5. Your savings remain thin relative to income. Your financial runway stays short. Step 6. Anxiety spikes again. Now you have high income and high obligation.
Step 7. You double down on work. You accept the stressful contract, the toxic client, the late nights, because now you have to maintain the image, and the loop restarts. Faster, bigger, more exhausting. You confuse expense with expertise, outflow with achievement. You believe that if you spend at a certain level, you must belong at that level. But belonging doesn't come from spending. It comes from internal alignment, and that's the missing piece. There's something deeper happening. Every luxury purchase isn't just financial, it's emotional. You're not buying a product, you're buying temporary relief from the fear of being exposed. That's emotional debt. The object fades, the reassurance fades, but the psychological debt remains, and like all debt, it compounds. Imagine standing on a cliff. On one side, massive stability, security, optional work, calm. On the other side, familiar scarcity, pressure, chase, validation through struggle. Which side feels familiar? Most high achievers unconsciously prefer the edge because stress confirms they're fighting, and fighting confirms they matter. Stability removes the fight, and that feels like identity death.
So how do you break this? Not with a tighter budget, not with spreadsheets. This is not a math problem. It's identity architecture. You must separate net worth from self-worth. Most people try to solve psychological tension with financial restriction. That's like treating a deep wound with a surface bandage. The real shift is this. You stop using money to prove something and start using money to remove something.
Instead of asking, what purchase proves I'm successful, ask, what purchase reduces internal pressure? That's reverse validation spending. You redirect spending away from status toward freedom. Instead of upgrading the car, maybe you upgrade your time. Instead of buying visibility, you buy stability. Maybe it's a financial planner who creates real runway, legal protection that reduces downside risk, therapy that untangles identity from income, investments that extend your freedom horizon, systems that reduce operational chaos. You're not spending to signal, you're spending to simplify. When money buys time, clarity, or peace, it rewires your nervous system. Your brain stops panicking because it finally sees proof that income is creating security, not just appearance. The imposter doesn't want a watch. It wants resilience. It wants proof that if revenue dips for 6 months, your life doesn't collapse. It wants proof that your worth isn't tied to your current contract. Once your brain feels genuine runway, something extraordinary happens. The urgency softens. The work becomes strategic, not desperate. You stop chasing every opportunity. You start choosing. And that's when wealth actually begins. When you redirect even a portion of status spending into stability spending, within months, your savings grow quietly. Your runway extends. Your stress decreases. Your decisions improve. You become less reactive, less fragile, less dependent on momentum. You stop living paycheck to paycheck at scale, and something deeper shifts. You no longer need external proof because your internal system feels regulated. If this felt uncomfortable, if you recognized yourself in that loop, that's not weakness, that's awareness. High income doesn't automatically create safety. It amplifies identity. If your identity is tied to chase, you'll keep recreating chase. But if you shift identity toward stewardship, toward stability, toward long-term freedom, everything changes.
The goal isn't to look wealthy. The goal is to feel unshakable. If this resonated, write the word time in the comments. Not for me, for you. A quiet marker, a decision that your money will buy stability, not status. Because the real flex isn't the car, it's the runway. And once you have runway, you stop running.